There are places that don't appear on any map. No coordinates. No reviews. No one ever talks about what happens after they leave, if they leave at all. We had just gotten married. Our honeymoon was supposed to be spontaneous, just the open road, the desert, and each other. But then, we saw it. An old wooden sign, swaying under a dead sky. Its faded letters read asterisk. Welcome to the Monarch Inn Vacancy. And that's when everything began to unravel. Crystal Ball, you're listening to SpookyShade, where forgotten roads lead to haunted places, and every story takes you somewhere you shouldn't have gone. Now, let's check in and see who doesn't check out. I don't remember exactly when the road started to disappear, but somewhere between the third gas station and the endless stretch of dark desert, the lines on the asphalt just stopped being there. It was supposed to be a quick detour. A scenic route, my wife called it, something off the interstate, winding through backroads lit by the dying glow of sunset. She said she found it on an old travel forum. Locals only, it boasted. No traffic, no cops, just quiet. That was hours ago. Now it was 2:41 a.m. The dashboard clock blinked in steady rhythm, casting a soft orange light over the tired creases on my wife's face. Mara had been asleep for at least an hour, curled up under her hoodie, head resting against the window. Outside, there was only black, no stars, no distant towns, no signs, no cell signal. Even the GPS had died 30 minutes ago, its screen stuck on a glitching blue void with a single word, recalculating. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. The road narrowed. I was starting to feel like we weren't driving through Nevada anymore, but through a memory of it. The kind of memory that comes back distorted. Too quiet. Too smooth. Like something's missing. And then the asphalt ended. Not abruptly. There was no ditch, no construction signs, no road closed barricade. It just faded. The smooth, cracked pavement gave way to gravel, then to dirt, then nothing but hardened sand under the tires. That's when Mara stirred. Are we there yet? She mumbled, rubbing sleep from her eyes. We were supposed to be, I said quietly, slowing the car. But I think we missed the turnoff. She looked around, squinting at the empty horizon. There were no lights in any direction. No moon. No night sky. Just a vast black sheet pressing down around us. Where the hell are we? I didn't answer. I rolled down the window a crack. The air that hit me smelled wrong. Not like desert air. It was wet. Thick. It carried the scent of mildew and cold stone. Something like old basements and forgotten places. We should have turned back. I should have stopped right then and there. But then we saw it. Just ahead, maybe half a mile away, a light. Dim, yellowish. Like an old gas lamp burning through fog. It flickered through the dark like a signal. A beacon. Look, Mara said, sitting up straighter. There's something ahead. I pressed the gas. As we neared, the light grew clearer. It wasn't a gas station or a road sign. It was a sign, yes, but not for anything I'd ever seen on a map. Carved into aged wood, the letters spelled out, "Welcome to the Monarch Inn Vacancy." The sign swung gently on rusted chains, though there was no wind. Behind it, nestled between two skeletal trees, stood the building. 3 stories high, with dark windows and steep gables. Victorian architecture, crumbling at the edges. A place that looked like it had been built a century ago and never truly lived in. My stomach twisted. This wasn't on the reservation list, Mara said. No, I replied. But it's here. She hesitated, then said, let's just stay the night. Get some sleep. Figure it out in the morning. I nodded, forcing a smile I didn't believe in. We rolled into the parking lot, gravel crunching beneath the tires. There were no other cars. No signs of life. But as we stepped out, the front porch light turned on. Bright. Sudden. And the front doors opened. The doors opened with a low, deliberate creak. No one stood there. I paused at the edge of the gravel drive, holding Mara's hand. The porch light flickered once, casting long, angular shadows across the warped wood of the floorboards. Do we knock? She asked. I didn't answer. The doors were already open. It felt more like an invitation than a welcome. Inside, the lobby glowed with a strange, amber warmth. Faded red wallpaper, gilded sconces, and a reception desk made from dark wood that looked hand-carved. The entire room felt preserved in time, like a set piece from a dream. We stepped in. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of polished wood and something older, like dried flowers and candle smoke. But underneath it, almost too faint to notice, was something else. Decay. A small bell sat on the counter. Tarnished brass. I rang it. Ding. The sound echoed, longer than it should have, like it had bounced off walls far beyond what we could see. Then footsteps. Measured. Deliberate. Coming from the hallway behind the desk. A man emerged. Tall, slim, dressed in a charcoal gray vest and bow tie. His hair was neatly slicked back, and his face was pale, drawn, and polite. His eyes were dark, too dark. "Welcome to the Monarch Inn," he said with a smooth, practiced cadence. It's rare that we receive guests this late. There was something off about the way he said it, like he was reading from a script, but didn't understand the words. Yeah, I cleared my throat. We weren't planning on staying. Got lost. GPS died. We saw your sign. His smile didn't reach his eyes. But of course, the Monarch always finds those who need it. Mara squeezed my hand. "Do you have a room?" she asked. He didn't answer at first, just tilted his head slightly, as if listening to something. Then he nodded. "We have exactly one vacancy," he said. "Room 303. Top floor. Best view of the surrounding area." I glanced at the dusty windows. All I could see was darkness pressing against the glass. He handed us a key, not a card. An old-fashioned metal key with a dark blue ribbon tied to the loop. "No elevator," he said, almost apologetically. "The stairs are just past the fireplace." I took the key. "Do we pay now or?" "No need," he said quickly. "The Monarch doesn't deal in currency." Before I could ask what that meant, he added, "Enjoy your stay. Breakfast is served at 6 o'clock sharp. If you're still here." He turned and disappeared back into the hallway. I stared at Mara. "If we're still here?" She shook her head. "This place is creepy as hell." "I know." We climbed the stairs in silence. The steps groaned under our feet, and the walls seemed to lean in just slightly. Too close, like the hotel had been built for someone just a little smaller than human. Paintings lined the staircase, each one older and darker than the last. Faces with black eyes, stormy skies, figures standing in fields of dead flowers. One painting had been scratched over, thick gouges marring what looked like a woman with her mouth sewn shut. By the time we reached the third floor, my legs felt heavier. Room 303 was at the end of the hall. I slid the key in. It resisted at first, then gave with a click. The door opened. Inside, the room was surprisingly nice. Clean, at least. Antique furnishings, a large bed, and velvet curtains drawn tight over tall windows. There was no TV, no phone, just a small rotary clock on the nightstand, ticking quietly. We set our bags down and exchanged a look. "I don't like it," Mara said. "Just for tonight," I replied. "We'll find real directions in the morning." She sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled. That's when I noticed something. The mirror. It was tall, freestanding, and placed directly across from the bed. But the reflection was wrong. The room it showed was darker than ours. Dimmer. The angle was off. I stepped left. In the mirror, my reflection didn't follow. Instead, it stayed still and smiled at me. I blinked. When I looked again, the reflection matched mine perfectly. "Let's go to sleep," I said quickly. That night, I dreamed of stairs. Endless, spiraling stairs beneath the hotel, leading down and down, until the sound of whispering filled my ears and a door opened at the bottom, letting in a cold, blue light. When I woke up, the mirror had moved 6 inches closer to the bed. I woke up at 6:01 a.m. Not because of an alarm, there wasn't one, but because the ticking of the clock on the nightstand had stopped. Completely. I reached for my phone. It was still dead. Mara stirred beside me. "What time is it?" she asked, voice muffled against the pillow. "Clock says 6, I replied. "But it's not ticking anymore." She sat up, rubbing her eyes. Light seeped in through a gap in the curtains, but it wasn't daylight. It was more like moonlight, muted and silver, not gold. And the angle was wrong. The light was coming from the floor. I got out of bed and stepped toward the mirror. It hadn't moved again. Or maybe it had. It was now directly across from my side of the bed, aligned so that my reflection stared back at me as soon as I stood up. But there was no reflection of the window behind me. Just a black void. I turned quickly and pulled open the curtains. No view. Instead of desert, or town, or even a parking lot, the window opened onto a wall of fog. Thick and impenetrable, like the hotel had been swallowed up during the night. "Are we sure this place is even real?" Mara whispered behind me. I didn't answer. We dressed and headed downstairs. The staircase creaked louder than before, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the paintings were watching us. One, in particular, a tall, hunched figure in black robes, seemed to change position each time we passed it. First it faced left, then right. Then it was closer to the bottom of the frame. The lobby was empty. No concierge. No guests. No breakfast. Just silence. Mara leaned on the front desk. Maybe he's in the back. I rang the bell. No echo this time. Just a dead clang. We waited for 5 minutes. 10. No one came. I don't like this, she said. Let's go. We walked to the front doors and stopped. They were gone. In their place was a blank wooden wall, perfectly flush, no hinges, no seams. Like the entrance had never been there. Mara stepped back. What the hell? I touched the wood. It was warm. Breathing, almost. Like skin. I turned back toward the stairs. Okay, maybe there's a back door. Fire exit. Something. We went down the hall behind the lobby, passing rooms labeled dining room, reading parlor, ballroom. Each time we tried a door, it opened into the same hallway we had just come from. I tested it 4 times. Entered through reading parlor. Emerged again in front of the dining room. The 5th time, we ended up back at the front desk. But something had changed. Now the lobby was darker. The sconces had dimmed, and the clock above the front desk ticked backwards. My breath caught in my throat. I want to go back to the room, Mara said, voice trembling. We turned, and the staircase was gone. In its place stood a narrow, pitch-black corridor that slanted downward, like a ramp into the earth. At the end of the hall was a red light. Pulsing. Breathing. Where's the room? She asked, panic creeping into her tone. I turned in place. Every direction now ended in hallway. Endless, shifting hallways lined with mirrors and doors that didn't open. There was no upstairs. No floor plan. Just a looping maze that had replaced the hotel. I swallowed hard. I think the Monarch changed. Mara's voice was almost a whisper. I think it was never really a hotel. We wandered for what felt like hours. The mirrors returned, each one taller than the last. And each time we passed them, our reflections became less accurate. Mara's didn't blink when she did. Mine moved a half-second too slow. At one point, I caught my reflection smiling when I wasn't. Then we found the elevator. It was old, brass-plated, and its doors stood open, beckoning. Inside, the panel had no floor numbers, just a single button. Unmarked. I don't want to go in there, Mara said. I looked behind us. The hallway had started to close in, walls pressing inward like the hotel was breathing again. We don't have a choice. We stepped in. The doors closed. The lights flickered once. Then the elevator began to descend. There was no sound, no hum, no motor, no movement. Just the sense of falling. I looked at the button panel again. The button was gone. And when the doors finally opened, it wasn't a floor. It was our room. Room 303. Perfectly intact. The bed made. The mirror reset to its original position. The curtains drawn tight. But this time, there were 2 people already lying in the bed. 2 figures. Identical to us. Sleeping peacefully. The copies didn't wake up. They lay perfectly still in the bed. Me and Mara, dressed exactly as we were before we left the room. Same scars. Same wristwatch. Mara's duplicate even had the small crescent birthmark on her collarbone. We stood there for a long moment, too stunned to speak. Finally, Mara whispered, "Is this a dream?" I didn't answer, because if it was dreaming without us. I reached forward, trembling, and touched the bedpost. It was real. Solid. Then the copies exhaled, together. Not a gasp, not a stir. Just a deep breath, like they were synchronized. Like they shared one set of lungs. I grabbed Mara's hand. "We're leaving," I said. We ran. This time we didn't look back. Down the hallway. Past the mirrors. Past the doors that now stood ajar, revealing rooms filled with wrongness. One room had nothing but dozens of mannequin heads. Another, hundreds of clocks, all ticking backward. In one, I saw a shadow suspended midair, hanging in a noose that didn't exist. And then, as we passed one final door, Mara stopped. She turned her head. "What is it?" I asked. "Did you hear that?" "No." She took a step back toward the door. Her eyes glazed over, unfocused. I think someone said my name. We made it back to 303. Not the one we saw with the copies. Somehow, this room felt different. Empty. Dead. But familiar. We locked the door. Pulled a dresser in front of it. Pushed the mirror face down on the floor. Then we lay on the bed, backs to the wall, fully clothed. No sleep. Just silence. I must have drifted off. Because the next thing I remember was waking to footsteps. Soft. Bare. Just outside the room. I sat up, heart pounding. Mara was gone. Mara. No answer. I stumbled out of bed and checked the bathroom. Empty. The dresser had been moved away from the door. The lock, undone. I stepped into the hallway. Everything was pitch black except for a faint, reddish glow at the far end. Mara. I called again, voice cracking. Then I heard it. My name. Whispered. Not from ahead. From behind me. I turned, but the hallway was empty. Then something brushed my shoulder. I spun around, heart in my throat, and saw Mara. Standing there. Eyes half closed. Walking. She moved past me silently, barefoot, her face slack, arms slightly outstretched like a sleepwalker. She turned the corner toward the red light. I grabbed her wrist. She didn't stop. Her mouth was moving, whispering something too quiet to hear. Mara, wake up. Her eyes snapped open. She gasped and fell to the ground, pulling away from me like I'd struck her. Don't touch me, she cried, then blinked. Danny. She looked around. At the hallway. At the pulsing red glow. Where are we? You were walking, I said. You were asleep. I don't sleepwalk. You do now? We crept back to the room. The mirror was back up. Upright. Polished. Waiting. It showed us. But this time, it was only me. No Mara. Just me standing alone. I looked beside me. She was right there. In the mirror, gone. Then her voice broke the silence. I think it's trying to keep me. Later that night, at exactly 3 a.m., Mara sat up in bed. Eyes open. She turned to me slowly, but her face wasn't hers. It looked like her, but her expression was blank. Cold. Her mouth moved, but the voice that came out was not Mara's. They always wake up at 3, it said. I leapt from the bed. Who are you? The thing smiled. Her smile, but crooked. Wrong. This place needs guests, it said. And you brought 2. Then it lay back down. Eyes closed. Breathing slowed. A moment later, Mara gasped awake, herself again. What happened? She asked. Why are you shaking? I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Neither did the hotel. From the hallway, I heard footsteps. From the mirror, I heard my own voice whisper, over and over. Don't leave her behind. The next morning, the hallway smelled like copper. I thought maybe it was my imagination. But when I opened the door to peek outside, Mara stopped behind me and whispered, Do you smell blood? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The corridor had changed again. The wallpaper, formerly striped burgundy, was now a peeling gray, revealing what looked like flaking concrete underneath. Every framed picture on the wall had turned to a mirror. No reflections in any of them. No stairs. No elevator. Only the hallway. And at the end of it, the lobby. We walked, slowly. Neither of us said much. Mara hadn't mentioned her possession from the night before, and I didn't push. But I noticed how she avoided the mirrors now. How her eyes darted left and right, like prey in unfamiliar woods. The lobby was still empty. Same warm glow. Same ticking clock above the desk, except now it was ticking sideways. The concierge was back. He stood behind the desk as if he had never left. Pale, thin, his hands clasped in front of him like a doll in display. Sleep well? He asked with no emotion. We want to check out, I said. Of course, he replied, tilting his head. Please sign the guest book first. He slid it forward. A heavy leather-bound tome with frayed edges and a spine that crackled when opened. The pages were yellowed, curling at the corners. Most of the entries were faded, names written in ink that looked hand-dipped. Some were just blotted fingerprints. I turned to the most recent page. 3 names were written. Carla Finch, room 207. Derek and Lucy Hill, room 105. Mara Ellis and Daniel Harker, room 303. The ink under our names was still wet. I looked up sharply. We didn't sign this. The concierge smiled. It knows. I flipped back through the pages. There were hundreds of names. Dates going back decades. The oldest entry I could find was from 1913. Next to it, in the margins, someone had written, Don't go to the 3rd floor. Another had underlined their own name and scrawled below it in shaky letters. Please, if anyone reads this, break the mirrors. Further down, someone had drawn a floor plan of the hotel, but it was wrong. There were floors that didn't exist. Staircases leading to nowhere. Arrows pointing to the root cellar below the laundry. And then, suddenly, the pages turned themselves. Stopped at a blank one. Right before my eyes, black ink bled up from beneath the paper, forming words. Mara Ellis checked out at 3 a.m. I recoiled. What the hell is this? I gasped. Mara leaned over, face pale. She ran her fingers across the words, but they smeared. The ink was warm, wet. Then a new line formed beneath. Daniel Harker, pending. We're not staying, I said aloud. We never agreed to this. The concierge nodded. You were invited. The Monarch does not need consent. Only presence. What is this place? Mara asked. His lips curled slightly. An anchor. A gathering place for those untethered. I slammed the book shut. We're leaving. He didn't stop us. We turned and walked back into the hall. The hotel didn't like that. The walls shuddered, and the lights flickered violently. A long, low moan came from somewhere deep beneath the floorboards. And then the mirrors began to hum. Every reflection we passed showed versions of us running, terrified, bloody, screaming. Mara looked away. I couldn't. I saw one version of myself banging on a window that wasn't there, his mouth open in a voiceless scream. Behind him, something tall and faceless dragged Mara into the darkness. We found the laundry room, not because we meant to, but because every hallway suddenly funneled us there. The door creaked open by itself. It was cold. Industrial washers lined one wall, all silent. On the far end was a trapdoor, padlocked and chained. Above it, etched into the concrete in something brown and crusted. Below lies Root. Below lies truth. You must not wake her. Mara stared at the writing. Her, she whispered. I looked down at the trapdoor. The lock was broken, fresh, and I realized someone had already gone in, and someone, or something, might be coming out. The air changed when we opened the trapdoor. It wasn't just colder, it was thicker. Each breath felt like dragging smoke into our lungs, sweet and metallic, as if the earth below had been sealed too long. The stairwell beneath descended into absolute black. I pointed the flashlight from my phone down into the dark, but the beam only reached a few steps before it was swallowed. The concrete walls dripped with moisture. Mold bloomed in strange circular patterns, like symbols, pulsing faintly, as if alive. We shouldn't be here, I whispered, but Mara didn't answer. She stood frozen at the top of the stairs, staring downward like something was whispering just beyond what I could hear. Her hand slowly raised, not to hold mine, but to touch the wall. Do you hear it? She asked. No. It's calling me. We made it down 10 steps before the door above slammed shut behind us. The sound echoed like a coffin lid sealing. I turned around and ran back up, banging on the underside with my fists. Nothing. No give. No sound from the other side. Mara didn't even flinch. She was already moving deeper, her feet bare now. When had she removed her shoes? And her posture loose, dreamlike. I followed. The basement beneath the Monarch was impossible. It stretched in all directions like a cavern, bigger than the entire footprint of the building above. Brick corridors webbed outward, lit only by a strange blue glow that pulsed from cracks in the stone. The deeper we went, the more unnatural it became. Rooms with no ceilings. Hallways that looped into themselves. Staircases that ended midair. And on the walls, always the same thing. Root her. Remember her. Feed her. Sometimes written in chalk. Sometimes scratched deep into the brick. Once, it was written in teeth, embedded in the wall like mosaic. We found the first altar in a circular chamber beneath the kitchen. The floor was tiled with mirrors, all shattered in a spiral, and in the center stood a stone basin filled with red liquid. Floating inside was a woman's dress, lace, torn, stained. It looked disturbingly like the one Mara wore the night we were married. Mara didn't speak. She stepped toward the basin. I grabbed her wrist. Snap out of it. She turned to me slowly, and for a moment, just a moment, her face wasn't hers. Something older, smiling with far too many teeth. Then she blinked. Danny, what is this place? We moved on. There were more altars, more signs. The Monarch is not a place. She wakes when you remember her. Every room is a root. Every guest a seed. We passed a chamber full of suitcases, thousands of them, stacked to the ceiling, each tagged with a name and date. Some were still wet. At one point, Mara gasped and stopped. What? She pointed. Among the bags was one I recognized instantly. It was mine. The tag read, Daniel Harker, 6 a.m. check-in, root class. I didn't remember bringing it. Eventually, we reached the final door. Heavy oak, reinforced with iron bands. A faded engraving read, "No guest shall enter her room." Mara stepped forward and placed her hand on it. The door opened on its own. Inside, the chamber was circular, domed, and alive. Pulsing walls of blackened root twisted through the stone like veins. In the center of the room, wrapped in what looked like a cocoon of silk and hair, was a figure. Tall, feminine, motionless. I wanted to believe she was asleep. Mara stepped toward her, as if drawn by gravity. Mara, no. But she didn't hear me. Her hand reached out, and the eyes of the figure snapped open. They weren't eyes. They were mirrors. I saw myself reflected in them, fractured, screaming, reaching for someone I no longer remembered. And then came the voice. Not out loud, but in my head. 1,000 voices overlapping, whispering directly into my brain. She is root. She is memory. You have fed her with love. You will feed her again. Mara collapsed. I rushed to her. Her nose was bleeding, her eyes wide, and then she whispered something that made my skin crawl. She's inside me. I lifted her, dragging her from the chamber as the walls began to quake. Behind us, the cocoon burst, and from it, she began to rise. I carried Mara up from the root chamber. The tunnels behind us groaned and shuddered as if the very bones of the hotel were twisting. Roots clawed at the walls, pulling stone inward, closing off corridors. The blue glow dimmed. The air thickened with the scent of old roses and rot. Mara was limp in my arms, her breath shallow, her skin cold, and yet she whispered, not to me, to something else. She's not done writing. I don't remember how we found our way back to room 303. When I looked up, we were already standing at the door. The hallway was different now. The wallpaper was made of hair. The sconces bled wax that hissed as it hit the floor. Every painting had become a portrait of Mara, smiling, screaming, staring blankly, each one slightly wrong. I pushed open the door. Inside, everything was reset. The bed made, the curtains drawn. The mirror stood upright. On the nightstand sat 2 glasses of wine, untouched. And on the bed lay another version of me, sleeping beside another Mara. I staggered back. No, no, no. Mara stirred in my arms. When she saw the doppelgangers, she didn't scream. She smiled. It's okay, she whispered. We made it back. That's not us, I said, stepping away. But she didn't follow. She reached toward the bed, and then her reflection stepped out of the mirror. Not literally, not like glass shattering. It was worse. Her reflection simply stopped being a reflection and began to move on its own. It stepped forward, barefoot, identical down to the scar on her right knee. It didn't blink. It didn't speak. It just reached out and touched Mara's cheek. She sighed softly. You're me, she said. The reflection nodded, then looked at me and smiled. But it wasn't a smile of welcome. It was a claim. I tried to pull Mara back, but she didn't budge. Instead, she turned to me and said, What's your name? I froze. Mara. She tilted her head. I'm sorry. I don't think I know you. I took a step back. No, don't do this. You're not forgetting me. You're not. She looked at the other Mara, the one that had come from the mirror. I remember her, she said softly. But I don't remember you. I snapped. I lunged forward, shoving the doppelganger back, but my hands passed through it. Not like smoke. Not like shadow. Like water. It rippled, then reformed, watching me with blank, ancient eyes. She has been rewritten. A voice said behind me. I turned. The concierge was in the room, standing silently at the foot of the bed, as though he'd always been there. The monarch has absorbed her, he said. The parts of her that remembered you no longer serve. She remembers only what nourishes her. You can't do this. I screamed. We already have. Mara walked past me. She laid down beside her double. The mirror self smiled, wrapped an arm around her, and both of them began to fade. Not disappear. Fade. Like a memory dissolving under sunlight. I ran. Through the halls. Through doors that changed behind me. Every room now held some part of Mara. Her laughter echoing from the chandeliers. Her heartbeat pounding in the pipes. Her handwriting scrawled on the walls. I found a hallway lined entirely with wedding photos. In each, it was Mara. But beside her was a different man. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Not me. They all looked happy. Until the last photo. It showed her alone, smiling, in front of the monarch. I collapsed. I sat there, staring at that photo, realizing the truth. Mara hadn't been the first. She had been rewritten, And now, I was next. I don't remember how long I stayed in that hallway. The photo of Mara smiling alone in front of the Monarch Inn kept looking back at me, no matter where I turned. I tore it down. Another took its place. Same smile. Same hollow warmth. She didn't remember me. Not the way I remembered her. I thought about the night I proposed. About the way she laughed when I burned our first dinner. About how she curled up beside me on cold mornings, stealing the covers. But that woman was gone now. No, not gone. Taken. I stood. My fists clenched. There had to be a way to get her back. I returned to the lobby. It was empty. The concierge was nowhere in sight. The guest book sat open on the desk, its pages flipping in the breeze of a fan that wasn't there. When I reached it, my name was already fading. Daniel Harker, pending. Then, Daniel Harker, voided. And then, just white space. As if I had never been here. But beneath the empty line, new ink rose like blood from under the skin. There is only one key left. One door. One chance. I found it near the fire exit. A door I'd never seen before, painted black, with no handle. Only a keyhole, and a key waiting in it. I turned it. Inside was a room that looked exactly like our bedroom back home. Warm lights. Our bookshelf. Her half-drunk mug of tea still steaming on the nightstand. And Mara, sitting on the bed, smiling. "Hey," she said, as if nothing had happened. "You okay? You look like you'd seen a ghost." I stepped in. Carefully. Slowly. She wore the same hoodie she wore the day we left for the trip. "It's me," I whispered. Her brow furrowed slightly. "Of course it is." I stood in front of her. "You remember me?" She chuckled. "Danny, what are you talking about? You look like you've been crying." And for a moment, I believed it. I wanted to. Then I looked at the wall behind her. No windows. Just wallpaper that pulsed like a heartbeat. "You're not her," I said softly. The thing in Mara's skin froze. The smile disappeared. And from within her eyes, something ancient blinked awake. "But I could be," it whispered in her voice. "You could stay. You could forget. We could be happy again. You'll never hurt. You'll never lose." It stood now, stepping closer. Every movement was almost right, but just wrong enough to make my skin crawl. All you have to do is say yes. I looked around. The room was too perfect. A memory. A weapon. A trap. I stepped back. And I said, "No." The illusion shattered. The room crumbled, walls splitting open like skin under pressure. Roots burst through the floor, dragging chairs, rugs, lamps into the void beneath. The Mara thing shrieked, not out of pain, but rage. It lunged. I ran. The hotel was falling apart now. Mirrors exploded. The halls twisted, warped. Doors slammed shut or opened into voids. The concierge stood at the center of it all, motionless, arms outstretched as if conducting an orchestra of collapse. I reached the front desk. The guest book was aflame, pages curling. And next to it, the original room key. 303. But now it glowed red. As I reached for it, the concierge finally spoke. "This is your last exit. Will it take me back?" He tilted his head. "It will take you somewhere else. But you will not be remembered." "Will she?" "She already isn't." I looked behind me. The Mara thing was still there, watching from the darkness. Waiting. She smiled. This time, with teeth like needles. "Come back," she whispered. "Let me finish you." I turned. I took the key. And I opened the final door. There was light. Blinding, searing. And then, epilogue. I woke up in a hospital in Barstow, California. 3 days later. No ID. No phone. Just a wedding ring and a room number scribbled on my forearm in ink that wouldn't wash off. 303. They said I was found wandering the desert, sunburned, dehydrated, muttering something about a hotel that didn't exist. I tried to tell them. They said there is no Monarch Inn in Nevada. They showed me a photo of my wife. Said she'd been missing for 5 years. I told them that wasn't possible. We got married last weekend. They looked at me with pity. And now, at night, I hear her voice again. From the mirror in my room. Calling me back. They say no one ever truly leaves the Monarch Inn. Even if your body finds its way back. Your memories, your love, your soul. They stay. And now, every night when I close my eyes, I hear her whispering from the mirror. Asking me to come back. To finish what was started. So if you're ever on the road, and you see a hotel with no lights in the surrounding hills, a wooden sign that creaks when there's no wind, don't stop. Don't look. And above all, don't check in. Because once you do, she remembers you. Headphone, you've been listening to SpookyShade. Your home for haunted stories, eerie mysteries, and the kind of nightmares that linger long after the screen goes dark. If you enjoyed this tale, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a light on tonight. We'll be waiting.